Hey everyone, it's Alex, and welcome to the Marvel Snap Decks of the Week, the weekly series where I showcase the top 10 best decks in Marvel Snap. And if you'd like to support my content, consider hitting the subscribe button. We're on our way to 100,000 subscribers, and I would sincerely appreciate it if you joined us on that journey. And I truly appreciate every single one of you that do support me through your viewership, and of course, everything that you do to make my dreams a reality. With that being said, let's get started with deck number 1. And by deck number 1, I mean deck 10. We're actually doing things a little differently this week. The top 5 decks we're talking about are going to be the statistical high infinite decks that we do have some limited statistics on. There are going to be some meta shakers, and these first 5 decks are going to be very high cube rate leveling decks that take you through towards infinite. And these are decks that might not have the meta popularity, however, they are tried, tested, and true cube rate winners. And we start with on reveal. Like, I gotta be honest with you, this deck has been truly remarkable for the longest time, and I suspect that it's the Namora edition that has made people kind of shy away from it, because Namora itself is not a popular card, but this on reveal package is one of the higher cube rate decks in Marvel Snap as a whole. And then when you consider that it's now adding Cassandra Nova to the mix, which if you don't have, you could consider something like a Wolfsbane as a, I mean, it's not going to replace what Cassandra Nova does, but Cassandra Nova provides some adequate protection against Erisham, who honestly is still very good and has a commanding position in the meta. But this deck is honestly remarkable. It's extremely strong, extremely versatile. You have the win condition of playing like Wong Namora. You also have the win condition of Wong White Tiger Odin. There's so many different ways you can close out a game, and the primary tech card of Cosmo is simply not being seen all that much. So this deck is pretty much free real estate. And so ultimately, I do think this deck is in a very strong spot right now. It has been consistently one of the highest cube rate decks in Marvel Snap over the past 2 months, despite its waning popularity. So if you have these cards and you're looking to level up, this is an excellent choice at number 10. That takes us to number 9, which is going to be the newest iteration of Zoo. Now, this particular deck is utilizing Super Scroll. Now, there's a whole slew of different decks that are utilizing, the tried, tested, and true Zoo-based cards. This is using Blue Marvel and the new K-Bishop Hawkeye. But what I like about this deck is that it does provide the Super Scroll for some versatility. We are seeing a lot of high-impact ongoing cards, and that Super Scroll can be a very high-impact card, especially on turn 6, if you have something like, say, Mockingbird discounted, allowing you to play Super Scroll in conjunction with it. It also allows you to favorably trade into mirror matches, where Zoo is being very popular, and they're playing their Kazar and Blarvel, and you can just Super Scroll it later to take advantage and play better on curve. Ultimately, a very interesting deck, and I mean, again, if you don't want to play Super Scroll, just play standard Zoo. But this is statistically performing exceptionally well because of its ability to counter the mirror match. That takes us to number 8, and number 8 is going to be Silver Surfer. Now, there's something very important to understand about Silver Surfer. It is highly susceptible to the number 1 deck of the meta, which is going to feature Sandman. So stay tuned to the rest of the video, because you're going to want to see that deck so you can identify it early, because there's going to be times where you're like, I can't actually snap into Sarah turn 5, or if they snap on turn 5 because they identify that you are playing a Surfer-based deck, you might find yourself in trouble. Now, a couple different things here. We do have Killmonger, which is obviously working to deal with the Zoo packages that are very, very prevalent right now. It is worth noting that almost all of them are running Kyera, so you're going to want to play Killmonger earlier on. This is using Gwenpool. Very notable, Fastos is making this deck right now, and it's kind of like up in the air whether or not Fastos is the card of choice, we'll say, in Silver Surfer, but statistically, it's actually performing pretty well right now, and so it's worth giving a shot this week if you're looking to try something a little spicy. Cassandra Nova makes this deck for reasons that are obvious, and we also have Gwenpool for the added statistical benefit of Brood and others that just like getting that little bit of extra energy and power. So regardless, I do think that Silver Surfer is in an interesting spot, although it is a little susceptible to the likes of Sandman, which we'll be talking about a little later. That takes us to number 7, and it is Eternal Hawk. Now, this has been a tried, tested, and true deck over the last little while. The addition of Cassandra Nova allows it to be extremely effective into Erisham, and honestly, we keep talking about Cassandra Nova and Erisham, but it's just a damn good card in and of itself. This deck is pretty much the one that I had been discussing over the last couple months in my video coverage of Erisham encounters for it. However, this is now including the Nocturne. Nocturne is making its way into this deck as well, which gives you obviously a lot of stats, a lot of mobility, but most importantly, an opportunity to kind of flip locations that may be beneficial to your opponent. Overall, a very solid deck, and it's been one of the most consistent performers in the meta. Deck number 6 is a brand new brew that is Loki Thena. Now, Thena continues to be an absolutely incredible package overall. It should surprise no one that it continues to be one of the top cards in the game. And the new Loki is actually working very well in conjunction with it. If you have Thena and Kitty Pryde with Angela, you're able to pretty consistently play while top decking inexpensive cards that you know you can play in conjunction with Kitty Pryde because, well, they're discounted by 1. So you pretty much have to be able to play them. So it's a pretty interesting deck overall with a lot of different kind of play lines. I also really like the addition of Copycat here. It's literally one of my favorite cards in Marvel Snap, if not my current favorite card in the game. So a very new, interesting take on Thena if you're interested in trying something a little different while experimenting with the new Loki as well. Statistics are still light on this particular deck because it's so new to the meta, but currently in terms of the leveling process, it is performing exceptionally well with a very high win rate and a very strong cube rate. Okay, so a deck you can turn to if you're looking to try something a little different in the current meta. Now, these next 5 decks are the statistical high infinite ones, so we have some more concrete stats, although the play rates, because it's the new season, are still pretty small. Sample sizes range between 250 to like 1,000 games. We generally like to be a little bit higher than that, between 500 and 1,000 games for most of our analytics, but because it's so new in the season, we do not have all those analytics quite yet. So here's what we're working with. We have Toxic Move. Now, this is a brand new emerging deck, and I really do like it. And it was kind of hard to name this even because it's like, is it even Move? Is it even Toxic? Is it a Kate Bishop? What is this? It's a little bit of everything, but a very interesting brew nonetheless. You have the ability to Ghost Spider with Dagger. Of course, you have the Grapple Hook. You have the Hazmat present. Not only that, but you have Ajax to take advantage of that kind of negative energy output provided by Hazmat. It's a really interesting deck, and it's running a 55% win rate, which is like kind of on the lower side for top 10s, but a 0.44 cube rate, which is on the higher end. Anything above 0.30 is generally considered very good, so the deck is performing very good. It is highly kind of interesting, highly niche, highly novel. So I think a lot of people are not prepared for this type of deck, and that might explain the very strong cube rate with the lower win rate, I should say. Okay, I'm not going to say it's a low win rate; it's just lower in terms of a top 10 spectrum. Overall, a very interesting brew, and I'm interested to see how it performs into the coming week. Now, with deck number 4, what's interesting here is the use of, well, Ajax once again, but we're removing that prior movement-based package and adding the bounce-based package. And what you're getting is this Werewolf by Night bounce package that performs very well with the Ajax and the Toxic style cards. You also got a little bit of junk in here, maybe with the Hawkeye Toxic Arrow. You have White Widow as well. But most notably, you do have the Hood and the Viper combination, which have proven to be very strong. Viper's change, where now she targets the lowest power card in the lane, provides her the opportunity to be much more effective in these types of decks. Now, while the win rate is slightly higher than the prior deck, you have a lower cube rate at 0.28. So I think the other deck is catching more people by surprise, and especially when you consider the kind of verticality of something like a Dagger, if you can get it just in those right spots. But still, it's a decent performing deck, and you can see that there's a lot of experimentation right now in Toxic, and I really like to see it. I do know that there's a lot of Ajax believers out there, and so hey, it's performing pretty damn well in the higher echelons of MMR. This takes us to our top 3. We have Black Bolt. We are seeing a lot of Black Bolt out here. What I really like about this deck is it does a really good job of taking that traditional Black Bolt stature package, which has always included Darkhawk and the Korg Rock Slide, which is kind of interesting actually, because even when Black Bolt and stature first kind of burst onto the meta, Black Bolt was always just discarding rocks they were drawing into, which was like kind of not that effective. I know you're chasing that 1/7 stature, but like, come on. Black Bolt's effect was pretty much useless there. But what's interesting here is you're not just relying on Black Bolt for stature. You also have Moon Knight, which can be tremendously disruptive for your opponent, while you have something like a Proxima Midnight, which can be definitely helpful for you. It is also texting something like a Cassandra Nova, but again, the cube rate at 0.27 is kind of lower than we would generally like. It's running a good win rate at 57%. I think it's because you have some good disruption pieces, as in the Rocks, and you have the Spider Ham. Nico can be a very consistent game winner, depending on kind of like the game situation and what she provides to you. But overall, it's just a very well-balanced deck. A little combo centric, and maybe Black Bolt still feels like a weak link, but hey, the new Moon Knight's performing here and you love to see it. That takes us to our top 2 decks of the week, and both of these are absolute meta shakers. Number 2 is Loki Erisham. This should come to no surprise. The new Loki is running a 59% win rate and a 0.46 cube rate. This is the dominant version of Erisham. It's performing exceptionally well. You have the nerfed Blob in here, the changed Loki, and then just a whole bunch of fantastic cards. Because of the prevalence of Zoo, you are seeing Enchantress being used. Legion continues to be one of my absolute favorite Erisham cards, but most importantly, you have Alliath, which does a very good job of shutting down a lot of these kind of like these turn 6 miracle style decks, which are like, the Silver Surfers and stuff like that. Now, this deck is not running Sandman, but it generally tends to hold priority very effectively because of the types of cards you're playing and because you're, well, cheating an energy out. It's worth noting that you're also running Cassandra Nova. It helps wins the mirror matches where Cassandra Nova tends to destroy you, but you can destroy them first, I guess, right? But Alliath is a key component here. You earn the initiative, and then you're able to effectively shut down their counterplay to some degree of effectiveness. Loki has proven to be pretty damn good, and we knew that they were going to kind of be leaning towards it being stronger than weaker with the most recent changes, and it's proven to be quite substantially strong, in particular in this Erisham shell. I'm sure we'll continue to see some experimentation with different Erisham shells, but as of right now, this is top dog. And that takes us to the number 1 deck, and if you're anyone like me, you're kind of sick of seeing Sandman. Now, listen, I did mention before that some of the decks we were showcasing were a little vulnerable to Sandman, and here we are, the deck that's kind of crushing it all. This deck really does have it all. I mean, you Sandman and you Ultron, those newly buffed drones, they have enough power to single-handedly win a couple locations. Even if you leave a location empty, suddenly there's 8 power there while you're also dropping an Ultron. It's pretty impressive overall. You got the Captain Marvel, which works great with Sandman because it helps to kind of alleviate the pressure of where, your opponent might be playing, so you can kind of take advantage of it. I tend to like versions that run Leader because, I guess I'm cringe. I do love the fact that this is running Copycat, Nocturne, and just very high value cards, even something like a Cassandra Nova. And naturally, because you're running Sandman, something like a Makari can be pretty helpful as well. Because if you top deck Makari out in turn 6, you've played your Sandman, it basically acts as a cheat out. And if you happen to have Jeff too, then you get to cheat a whole lot of stuff out, whereas your opponent really can't. Ultimately, this has been one of the meta-defining decks of the past week, and if you're looking to climb in Infinite, this is probably the one that you can turn to. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate every one of you. Good luck on your Infinite climb, and we'll see you on that next Marvel Snap video.